Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you're listening to us from. And thank you for coming back to listen to our rambling about HR and global HR technology. Today, we have planned to have a chat with Martin Gillet. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Martin.
Not far off, but it's fine.
Well, how would you pronounce it?
It's a Gillet. So Gillet is like the
Gillet.
vegetable
Okay,
brand,
good.
except you have
Gillet.
two L, but it's fine.
It has two L, but I never know. You know, French has this strange glig that comes on over the double L. Anyway, welcome. It's
Thank
a treat
you.
to have you here. Martin has been working as an HR trainer and HR consultant, HR technology consultant, I should add, for a few years, I would say. Let's not give it away so easily. And he has one of the best experience I know of in the HR technology world, specifically SAP technology world, I think. Starting with SAP France, consulting independently and with Cogilius in multiple countries with many customers in Europe and beyond. So, absolutely peerless experience with all modules under your belt, I believe, as well as being an SAP mentor.
Yeah.
Alumni. We all grow up at some
Alumni.
point. So after this, I'd like to open the discussion, and please, Luke and Sherry, interrupt me because otherwise I ramble, and you know that.
Happy to do that.
Have you been busy on recently, Martin? It has been a minute.
It was more than a minute. So first of all, thank you for having me. Well, what has been keeping us busy, I mean, since day one is the evolution of technology. I haven't seen much, progress maybe in processes, except maybe cutting loose some ends and some milestones in the process. But basically, it's technology. Technology is the driver that enables a lot of things. And looking back at the days, I think I saw a post of my former colleague, also Michael Bischoff, having lunch with Udo Webel. Maybe you remember him back in 1998. Udo is the one who wrote the first book on employee self-services. So I remember the day when we were basically enabling, what they were calling empowering people to access their own data to make their leave requests. Well, for that core processes, that hasn't changed much, except that today we are doing this on our phones. We're doing this maybe on our watch or whatever. So the technology has empowered that. So that's what has been keeping us busy, kind of repeating itself over the year, but for a better mood, I guess, because of course it gets a lot easier for people to request things, to have access to information. So that's the burden, I would say, of a consulting mode for the last 25, 26 years that I've been working on SAP.
Yeah. You're right.
How is the whole AI thing affecting you, Martin? Because I'm telling you, I cannot open up a website, a story without somebody mentioning AI. And I know that SAP and other carriers, other suppliers are starting to roll out some AI, which I don't know, it seems to me like who will invest in that?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, they probably should. I can have a few examples right now, but it's not HR related. When you want to reach a customer service, and today basically they just want you to connect via an app. You cannot actually connect to someone who would probably solve the issue within seconds. Now it takes a couple of days, a couple of weeks to get someone, maybe by email or by text messages. So I remember in the good old days, because I haven't focused on that area yet in too much depth, but we had back in the days the initiative led by SAP with Copilot, for instance, or the example they provided back in the days with, what was the name of this jewelry, where you could scan the broken piece and they could give you a quote and tell you if it was repairable. So this is a kind maybe of AI that could be handy for customers. To do kind of a self-assessment, on your body. Do I need to consult or am I good? This is something that SAP has worked quite a lot was the medical side back in the days. But it's true that for
That's right.
HR, most people nowadays they have this kind of what do you call that, chit chat box where you could ask the most frequent scenario, and before you reach out to a business partner, they will basically point you out in the right direction, so that we can basically leverage the number of calls and the number of tickets that we get.
Yeah. So controlling, in the end, it's saving by automation, to put it very bluntly.
Yeah, so automation is saving some kind of, maybe latency as well. We've seen that a lot with, again, today with the onboarding process. When you have someone joining, back in the days, it could still take, a couple of weeks before you get your access to system, because HR didn't do its job, didn't create you, and you did not exist in the system. And from there, everything was actually coming back to you. So nowadays, it's basically a fraction of a second. The moment you are accepted by recruitment team, by the onboarding process, you fill in the missing dots, and then your user gets created, and you have your access within the morning or the afternoon. So it's much, let's say, smoother. It's much faster. But still, I'm a believer in the human resource, so I still believe we should have someone in between monitoring this, because too often people automate for the sake of automation, and when something goes wrong in the process because the system doesn't know where to address, then basically it's a living hell for someone to reach out to someone. So we need to make sure that someone is basically monitoring that situation.
Well, one of the biggest uses of AI up until recently has been in recruiting. And
that's true.
It automates a very human-based process. Right? There's a lot of evaluation of candidates. There's a lot of interpretation of data between one candidate and another. You have CVs, different levels of information, different types of backgrounds and experience, all relevant maybe for the job, but some more relevant than others. And how is AI going to be able to treat that versus a human? And the other side of it is a lot of AI, or particularly and also generative AI, is often learning from looking at past data. And the problem with that in some cases are there are biases in how recruiting may have been done in an organization in the past, towards maybe gender, race, other background information. And sometimes the AI can learn that. And so you're not actually solving a problem, possibly even exacerbating a problem you're trying to get rid of.
Right.
I think there was a case of that kind of situation with Amazon, wasn't that? Maybe a couple of years ago, or maybe more even.
I think you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar to what you have described. Look, it was fantastic. I'll chase it and see if I can share the write up, some write up about that. It was fabulous it was a aha moment. Say, yep, it's not all perfect. Indeed.
I mean, in the end, it's really all coming from humans, some way or other.
And that's the problem, right?
Right.
Well, I'm not sure it's a problem, but what I also find interesting, given that we're talking about the global side of everything, I'm also thinking about how global is AI truly, because we know where it, and this is something that popped in my mind right now, so I don't have an answer for once. I'm not even going to try to answer, but I do wonder how, for example, for recruiting, when you recruit someone and you're local in a region, let's say, most of the time there are some habits of how to treat the CV, how to represent yourself. I remember for a period of time, in some regions, you should put the picture of yourself on the CV. In other areas, it's a no-no for diversity or whatever. How will AI respond to something like that? Is it able to read anything as difference in regional difference, or is just we'll go lucky?
Oh, that's a good question, Kara. And I think that's honestly where I was going with my question to you, Martin. Like, are you seeing the same things over there in Europe that I'm seeing here in the US?
Yes, we definitely do. I mean, there is, like Kiara said, some let's say sensitivity that might be closer to our heart compared to other countries, but basically by definition, yes, it's the same. We still have the same, diversity challenge with us, the inclusion, all those kinds of things. Now we're living in a global world, so it doesn't take a lot of time to reach out everywhere. So yes, indeed. But like you said, there might be some local habits, some local procedure. So that's a very good question from your side. Is there a sensitivity level that we could basically adjust somewhere in the process? Will the AI be able to format maybe the data that it receives and remove all the picture? But voila, at the end of the day, if it was instructed not to read the picture, then it will disregard that information. But then you might be missing out because I don't know, maybe from a facial recognition, you could say 1,000 expression, and it's like, we could ask people nowadays to revert to the hand scripted resume. Back in the days when I remember most of the companies were asking people to do a handwritten letter to basically make an assessment. Why do we do that today? Do we still do that? I haven't seen
That
it in a
is
while.
not going to work in the future because they are not teaching handwriting here in the States.
That's correct. That's so
Well,
right.
when they did teach handwriting, it didn't make any difference for me. Mine is terrible, and
Should have
I
been a doctor.
didn't get a. Yeah, I should have been a doctor maybe. Don't think I'm smart enough for that either.
But sometimes there are even simpler problems. I was thinking, you remember? I don't know if you've seen some of her posts and some of Joy Buolamini. She's well today an MIT professor, I believe. Before she was an MIT student, and if I remember correctly in her story, she's Black. And her problem was she was on a facial recognition project, but facial recognition at MIT at the time was not able to recognize her face because it was not trained on colored face.
How interesting.
And much of her work, she's been in coding for a long time, and much of her work has been focusing on making facial recognition, and I think she's gone beyond at this point because everybody gets bored after 15 years of working on something. But I did find fascinating. She did a number of videos and studies about how faces are simply not seen as human. Simply because, well, it's a data set that has been provided. It's a similar problem to what you Luke, was mentioning earlier. AI can only recognize whatever data set it has been shown.
Right.
And I wonder how that could impact global AI at this point, even in recruitment. They receive pictures. How is it going to react? I don't know.
It could be propagating unintentional bias, right?
Yeah.
Depending on who's feeding the information.
Or reject the profile simply because they can't recognize a picture.
Or you could hack into it perhaps if you wanted to like be diabolical and disrupt the hiring practices. What else is going on, Martin?
Well, like you said, there's a lot of things going on. So recruitment, of course, is always very exciting, but for most of us currently, we're working on the latest technologies, embedding the latest legal requirement. So it's still probably on your plate as well. So the regulation that we have for accessing data, so GDPR, with the new functionality that we can also provide to end users. So this is the same story that we have seen for the last decades, right? So this is the ongoing technology change swift that we have. And of course, we're still keeping an eye on SAP. I'm the old fart, I guess, with the SAP on-premise. So we're still keeping an eye, because many customers don't want to go for cloud still, and they want still to have something decent. So either they have, gone away from SAP, or they're still waiting for SAP to carry on delivering, new functionalities on that side. But so I would say it's the same old, nothing much exciting beside technology, except meeting new colleagues and new companies and making the best out of it and keeping users happy to use an IT system, because after all, it's all IT.
True, but it's a very differentiated IT. Do you see some processes more impacted than others? And I have another question in mind, but I'm trying I'll postpone it.
That's all right, as long as you don't forget it. So yes, of course, there are different processes that are more impacted than others. So I would say you have basically probably different kind of families. So we have the basic services that we always provide. So all the different information regarding your leave request, your time statement, your pay slip. So all the basic stuff that we used to know as the administrative part. And then of course the process that has taken the most out of it, and you know this probably better than I do with the success factors back in the day, it's the what these Einsteins are calling still today the talent suite. So the learning. So today the learning is actually one of the best things that can happen to us, and then we need to embrace. So this is also where we have basically a differentiator, because too many customers probably we're still working, you know, either with external resource or either we know with poor content. So we still see a lot of things going on in customers embracing learning and those different platforms that they can offer. I mean, some customers still, you know, send you to LinkedIn Learning Hub, for instance. I mean, this is very clever, but if there is no follow-up behind, there is no link to my appraisals, there is no management by objective or whatsoever. So basically, you're sending people, you know, to a fast food and they can take anything they want, fair enough, but what's in it for them and what's in it for us? So that's basically what I've seen a lot of differentiator taking place.
You know, I think what it highlights here and what it's in the end, it's a process that needs to be end to end, all over talent. It's not focused. You cannot, or it's really hard to focus on learning alone without having the visibility that it all brings in, or to focus on performance and goals, for that matter, without seeing succession. It has to be an end-to-end approach. At least that's what I'm seeing most of the time. Because if you forget one piece, then it all falls down like a car castle. It doesn't really work anymore.
I would agree. Yes, I concur. It's basically a journey. So once you have someone onboarded, I mean, maybe because I'm part of the old school and you still, you know, work with the same, you know, firm for 20 years, etc. But if you want to have what they call talent retention, so you want people to stay and be happy, basically it's a whole thing that you need to see. So I mean, this is cheesy, but this is your helicopter overview. And by all means, this is, you know, part of your discussion that you have at least a couple of times per year with your reporting manager, and then also say what you want, and also explore maybe areas where you are maybe not, you know, what do you call that, familiar with, because maybe there you could do some nice things that you never thought of. So the learning will keep you alert and will keep you also happy by providing not only happiness to the customer, because we only provide, I mean, many customers still have today a chief happiness officer, but you will also provide what we call the ongoing, let's say, added value for the company and the customer.
Yeah. Do you see regional differences on that kind of process? Because I always felt it's a pretty standardized one, but maybe in practice you see different approaches there.
Yes. So in Europe, definitely you have some. I mean, one of the best example would be probably the French, because it also comes down to the mandatory training that you're supposed to attend per year. So for instance, France, you normally have certain days that you have to take. So you have to, between bracket, that enables certain processes. Whereas some other countries, it's probably more, let's say, freestyle, and probably it's done, you know, on an Excel file, or it's done, you know, with an external budget. So it's not really embedded in the full process that you described. So definitely there are some differences. I could think of France, UK, and Germany, not to name them. I'm not too sure about Italy. Maybe you can chime in there, but yes, definitely. And also bear in mind that the what I've seen throughout the years, because when you made the introduction, you mentioned that I started training on behalf of SAP back in '98. I've done a lot of trainings worldwide, and I've seen also differences by different, let's say, nationalities, how people understand and also get the information to them. You were mentioning cultural differences. They are different ways. And you cannot, I mean, SAP, of course, has to do it in the way that they deliver information. And that's where maybe the trainer can make a difference, but they're trying to standardize the way we consume things. But then the problem I see is that, some of the information might get lost in the process, or you simply basically brainwash people and don't provide them the opportunity to think for themselves and provide alternative solution. And we all know that in IT, there's not always a, let's say, one answer. There's always, different answer with different consequences. But you see, that's maybe what you've seen also with big five companies, brainwashing all the newcomers, and they only know one way in the system. Whereas maybe after 20 years experience, you know that there might be 3 ways to do it, at least that you know of. So you see, yes, definitely, yes.
So,
That makes sense. Yes. Go ahead, Luke.
So probably going to change topic a little bit. I was into the comment you made earlier, Martin. You mentioned, a lot of customers still staying on premise and not moving, or maybe not looking to move to the cloud anytime soon. I hope I didn't steal your thunder there, Chiara.
No. That was my question. I was going to get to go for it.
Because I'm quite interested on what you're seeing, Martin, in terms of that. What you're seeing in terms of moving to the cloud, or what sort of reasons the customers give for not moving, whether it's just not interested, or they have something working, or whether there's maybe functionality gaps. I mean, what in general are you seeing right now?
Well, you have different, I wouldn't call them excuses, but different reasons that are put up front. So one of the first thing is probably that they're not ready. So you have, let's say, slow moving, budget approvals, system moving, etc. And probably HR is not, the priority. Priority goes to the business, when we need to have customer facing, beautiful apps, etc. So we are considered as a cost. So they just say, okay, it works, so why fixing it? So that's probably one of the first reasons, is that there is a latency in reaching out to HR. There are still some questionings regarding the security and the access, although we all know that now you should have understood it's a myth, and that a system in the cloud is probably even more secure than something on premise. So that's something that we still need to debunk, because managers that we face are still maybe part of the old school that still believe in that. So that's the debunking part. A third thing that you could also see is the fact that they simply don't have the budget. So they're working with local systems that are basically doing the job. And so basically it's just a question of not being able to afford that. So and also what the ones that I stick with, we would like to see is to have one system for all the different processes. And of course, sometimes they are reluctant to move to acquisition, for instance, that SAP made. So they still work with payroll on premise. So why should I work with payroll on SuccessFactors? And like we said, we have to check the priorities that they have. So priorities most of the time goes for learning, for talent, not for developing, a different access of a payroll engine that has already taken maybe 10 years to be efficient. So they definitely don't want to open that Pandora's box. So those are the different silos of reasons that I've come across. Pro or cons. I don't know if that's the right debate to start, but voila. So, but today the clouds, we could go in the cloud and not even tell them, they wouldn't notice the difference, right? So it's all about maybe a technical switch that we need to do from the IT, perspective, and then part of the service that we deliver. So,
yeah,
I think if there was no change impact and no financial impact, it would be easier to change. But it's something always changes. Right?
Yes, I always quote the Joe Black, nothing is certain but death and taxes. So same goes for financial. You would be amazed even, you guys know this maybe more than I do. Since the beginning, we were fighting with internal mobility. That's why talent picked up so much, because we want people to be able to do 20 things, to be actually able to switch with different people. Then came the COVID. So we have to be even more efficient, more productive, etc. but we have to fight for budget, and budget is basically not an easy thing to catch, and people have to make choices. If I had the choice, I would just go for it and say, look at all the different, added value that you will get. Voila. So that's not an easy task. I mean, it's not only for HR, but customers are setting up their priorities. So,
but I feel that it's a matter of making a plan. You may not have budget or have a limited budget, but if you plan for it sequentially, maybe over a number of years, then you have what you need. Step by step.
Assuming that you have a true leader that has a vision and that you have someone that you can rely on with let's say, a trusted advisor, architect that has visibility and knows and understand, and also bear in mind that keeps up with SAP changing. SAP was slow moving back in the days, but nowadays I just exited another meeting when we were discussing that, and the information that was presented on the table, in fact, was inaccurate. It was a years old. And in between, for instance, just to give you an example with a front end, so we provide apps to the end users. Well, they came in the discussion, we have technical means like the gateway, and basically a year ago, SAP dispatched a note saying that this was not the recommended approach anymore. So we need to make assumption on things that are moving constantly. So this is, if you have a visibility, you have a roadmap, you have a path, this is the way to go, and you budget ahead. We don't have to go live tomorrow. So if you have a 5-10 year roadmap plan, yes, that should be part of it.
So you're actually saying that SAP are now moving too fast?
They're not moving too fast. We never moved fast enough. Remember the Matrix movie. What I'm saying is that SAP has basically made a tremendous, amount of step forward to go and move faster. Remember back in the days when Craig Mahill was quoting back in the days in Waldorf, this is not your father SAP anymore. And I like that. I mean, I cherish the father side, but we have to be agile. And this is also what SuccessFactors brought back in the days. It's like, the mindset, the attitude, and we are proactive. We move things. We go, beyond what is expected, and we look forward for the future. Because otherwise we could stick, with the system forever. So why are we still, working with Microsoft Suite? Why are we not, on the open office? So you see, things have to change for a better thing, and of course we have to abide by what the providers can provide. But from what I can tell, SAP has done a good job. That they move fast enough, probably not enough. I would say I'm getting older to keep up. That's maybe the other side.
Talking of mindset, in the US, there's a lot of focus on employee experience, which is a reason that customers move to SuccessFactors or to other cloud HR solutions, that they maybe look at Qualtrics or some other type of experience management software. Is that trend as strong in Europe? Is it something that impacts the thinking of moving to the cloud? Or organizations just thinking, well, our technology works for what we need?
Not that I know of. I mean, I've seen Qualtrics already back in the days being used by the Belgian university to gather feedback for the COVID. I just came back from France. Asked me for an experience summary, and it was Qualtrics based on that. But I'm not sure it's impacting basically their move to the cloud. I think that the fear of the cloud is highly overrated, because people are still unaware of it. So give it, still a few years, and we'll probably go with a generation of management that fully understand the benefits and the boundaries that are tied with the cloud. But today, the cloud is still there for everything we do, right? I mean, probably your application, your pictures, your Gmail account, or whatever, not to name them, is in the cloud. So the cloud is not even something new, probably. It's something that we were already doing back in the days with the hosting, to simplify, right? So it's still there. I mean, maybe it's also part of the marketing misunderstanding that management might have.
There's a lot of marketing that goes into this, for sure.
There is that's something in many situations people fail to absorb, how much of our lives are already in the cloud, no matter what we do.
Yes.
We request formal marriage certificates on the cloud from our city, and we receive it on our Gmail.
Yep.
So at some point we need to assess that, yes, the cloud is safe enough, and let's stop anyway. Terror mongering. Well, I've really had fun hearing this and verifying that. The question about the blockers to the cloud was spot on, Luke. Martin, it was great listening to you. I think we could keep talking for the next hour, but it might become boring for our listeners. So maybe in a little bit of time, we'll reinvite you and we'll have a different conversation, maybe on global project. If you encounter something really fun that you would like to tell our listeners to, let us know. We'll be happy to have you back.
Sure thing. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your time.
It's great to see you.
Thank you
again,
for taking
Martin.
the time. It was
Thanks, Martin.
fabulous. Thank you so much.
Yes, guys. No, that was fun.